Mindanao was already Islam by 100 years. There's a historical injustice committed against the Moro people. We have to correct it.
All out war against them and nobody can stop me.
Aid workers say some 450,000 people have been displaced.
As we embark on another attempt to solve the conflict in Mindanao with the creation of the new Bangsamoro political entity,
we humbly submit this new proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law. This is the best antidote to violent extremism that has wrought havoc in many parts of the Bangsamoro.
Perhaps we need to have a clear understanding first of how the problem started and evolved. And the first step towards that is to forget about everything we were taught in school, using textbooks written from the point of view of the colonizers, and the stereotypical simplistic generalizations we have heard from traditional politicians, mainstream media, and our own oftentimes prejudiced parents about what is wrong with Mindanao. Next, it will be best if we stop saying that the Mindanao conflict is a Muslim-Christian conflict. It is not a religious war. Yes, some of the people involved in the conflict through the years have been Islamized and some have been Christianized. And there are actually Muslims and Christians fighting on the same side, not just on opposite sides of each other. Before either Islam or Christianity reached what is now collectively known as the Philippines, the islands, like its southern neighbors, Malaysia and Indonesia, was a Hindu, Buddhist, and animistic nation. Islam first arrived in the islands through Mindanao and Sulu in the 14th century, and the other religions gradually disappeared. When Ferdinand Magellan claimed the islands for Spain in 1521, Christianity became the dominant religion for more than 300 years under Spanish colonial rule. If the conflict in Mindanao is not a conflict between religions, what is it? It is a struggle of indigenous peoples who had their own established social, economic, and political systems within their respective territories before the entire islands, collectively known now as the Philippines, was colonized by Spain and the United States. It is a struggle for liberation against historical injustices. The struggle of the Bangsamoro people against colonization has been well documented in history. Orlando Cardinal Quevedo, who as a priest served in various capacities in different areas of the Bangsamoro territory since the 1960s, reflected on the Bangsamoro struggle and offered the following synthesis of what he thinks is the root of the Moro conflict.
Collaborate with one another, with our Muslim brothers and sisters, the ulama, the ustad.
Cardinal Quevedo noted three injustices at the heart of the conflict. First, the injustice to the Moro identity. Although they come from diverse ethnic groups with different languages and different customs and traditions, they are bound together into a distinct and identifiable social group as Muslims. Such unity in diversity was already a reality long before the term Filipinos came to describe the Indias colonized by the Spaniards in the second half of the 16th century. In contrast, the Christian Filipinos asserted their nationhood only when the revolution against Spain was launched in 1896. When the sense of nationhood among Filipinos began to be firmed up under American rule, the Bangsamoro people had been resisting attempts to put them under Filipino rule. The various campaigns, military and otherwise, by Spanish, American, and Filipino governments to subjugate, assimilate, and integrate the Bangsamoro into the mainstream body politic without regard to their historical and cultural makeup is an injustice to their religious, cultural, and political identity. Second, injustice to moral political sovereignty. Even before Spanish colonization, the Muslim communities in Mindanao already had their own structures of political governance, centered on their datus, rahas, and sultans. They also had recognizable territorial boundaries. They were free to govern themselves in their own way. They possessed political sovereignty and waged numerous wars against Spanish forces to defend their homeland. The gradual loss of sovereignty of the Bangsamoro to the American colonial government and later to the Philippine government was a fundamental injustice, even though some of their leaders who served in government might have been co-opted. And third, injustice to the Moro integral development. With the loss of political sovereignty came the loss of great chunks of Moro ancestral lands. Much of the loss resulted from a long series of legal enactments by the Philippine Commission, the Commonwealth Government, and the post-independence government. Through land registration, declaration of public land, mining, cadastral surveys, creation of agricultural colonies, procedures for land ownership, Moros were stripped of their territory. They call this legalized land grabbing. Ancestral domains were drastically reduced and benefited the Christianized Filipino settlers. There are other problems, of course, like poverty, malnutrition, illiteracy, criminality, terrorism, clan wars or rido, political feuds, and violence. But most of these are symptoms of the deeper problem of the minoritization of the Moro people. Solutions to the Mindanao problem, therefore, must be anchored on the correct understanding of the roots of the conflict. We cannot keep doing more of the same, imposing the dominant Christian viewpoint we inherited from our Spanish colonizers, employing shrewd legal tactics to forcibly integrate the Bangsamoro people into our body politic, like what the American colonial government and later the Philippine government did, and disrespecting the Bangsamoro identity and unjustly treating them as second-class citizens. The chairman of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front Peace Panel, Mohager Iqbal, writing under the pseudonym Salah Jubair, wrote, "The Moros are not asking for the whole of Mindanao because the circumstances have superseded some facts of history. They just want a parcel of it, especially where they predominate. This will enable generations after them to live in peace and piety as Islam enjoins all believers. The indigenous peoples, whom the Visayans call Lumads, may opt to join their blood brothers, the Moros, and they are welcome. After all, the two peoples are inseparable in history of Mindanao and Sulu. Is it too much a price for peace, development, and prosperity for all? A comprehensive peace agreement and political settlement anchored on righting the historical injustice committed against the Bangsamoro throughout history is not just a long-awaited victory of the Philippine Muslims. It is a victory for all Filipinos, regardless of ethnicity, geographical origin, and religion. Because we can have many nations, communities of diverse languages, beliefs, customs, and traditions under one state, the Republic of the Philippines. The Mindanao problem is a Philippine problem, affecting all Filipinos. Its solution also belongs to all Filipinos.
The comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro is not only for the MILF. It is for the MNLF as well, as much as it is for all the Muslim ethnic tribes, the Christian settlers, and the indigenous peoples in the prospective Bangsamoro government territory. It will not be a government of the MILF, but a government of the Bangsamoro.
I am Codes within the context of the Republic of the Philippines, there shall be a Bangsamoro country.
Nothing will appease the Muslim, the Moro people, if you do not give them the BBL.